Hello, class. So I'm going over pretty much my final lecture, and if not the final, pretty close to the final, which is going to go over CRAP or graphic design. And as you probably have surmised, this CRAP doesn't stand for what you think it does. It's an acronym for contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. So one of the things that we were going to do for our final portfolio is actually revise your second project into a digital project. I did this because your first assignment, of course, you'll revise as a paper, and then and your research paper, which is this big, the culmination of everything you learned in the class, you'll revise one final time into the final version of that paper. So I thought, why would you revise a second assignment, which is basically like a mini version of your research paper, but no argument, right? Which is the proposal. Instead, I wanted you to take your information that you've gathered and that you've researched and that you wrote about and make an actual digital project that you would present to somebody as if you were going to argue to them in a quick manner. So, like in a brochure or a infographic or a something of that nature, right? Something visual instead of being a written assignment. And that's really what that is asking you to do, that part of the final portfolio. And that's why we are going to go over visual design elements here. And these are very simple, basic ones. There's, of course, a lot more when it comes to visual design, but I'm not asking you to be experts in visual design. But what I am asking you is to think rhetorically on how you would present your information in a visual way. How could you appeal to your audience, right? In this case, it'll be me, but imagine you hand this out to somebody, like how could you summarize and bring out the important points of your research to somebody if you handed them like a pamphlet, right? Would they be able to get everything they needed to and be able to be engaged with the images that you given? So let's go over that here real quick. Because after this quick lecture on CRAP, I want to then go over some of the options you have on what you can do for a digital project and on how you can go about doing the digital project. All right, so CRAP, as I said before, stands for contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. It's just a simple design principles of what you should keep in mind when you're designing something visually, right? And think of the PowerPoint itself and all the PowerPoints that I've done, right? These are the kind of design principles I should have kept in mind while giving you this information, right? So you not only stay engaged, but also learn what I want you to learn from this, right? So that is what this is all about. So let's go over, of course, contrast, which is the first. Simply put, it's like it says here, it just means the difference between two things that you have on your image here. So it's how you manipulate space, how you use color, how you use the text, how you use positioning to create this contrast, this difference to highlight something or to make things appealing or interesting, right? Having good contrast makes it so that things stand out in a pleasing way. Having bad contrast makes it so that people can't really understand or it's not very clear as to what you're trying to show them, right? So here is an example of good contrast for a advertisement for this show called Mad Men. And you can see here, it's grid contrast between the white, the black, and the red. And that's all the three colors that you get from this image. And the red of the dress works well with the red of the men, and then the black works well with the black on the left. And then the white of the med works well with the white on the right. And you get a good silhouettes of the woman and the man. And that creates a really interesting image, right? Really with working with contrast. Of course, it's not just contrast. It's just contrast isn't the only one used here. You can see alignment and proximity, but the idea is that contrast is the one that we're focusing on the most here. An effective contrast is a good indicator of having a good appeal towards your audience. So, like I said, this is very effective. And color choice here is a good way of seeing that. So here we have a black dot here on the back of it, like a peach color. I mean, it might not be the most interesting color, but you can tell that it's a very effective way of showing what that image, as opposed to what we have here with red background with green, right? It hurts the eyes. It's almost offensive, right? This would be a bad example of using it. It would be totally bad if your image was in this way, right? This is the idea of why contrast is important. If you have good contrast, people won't notice it. If you have bad contrast, people will definitely notice it. So here's another good example here. On the left, we have good contrast with color and without, and on the right, not so much, right? So look at the difference between these two. We have here the image, and it has a great outline. And then there's green here, as same kind of green here, not the same, but same color. But the green here is more subdued, right? Very much a background. It's almost blends in with the white here. And and the reason that's there is because you can see the text that sticks out. And that's what this advertisement or whatever it is wants you to see. And compare that to this over here, where the green kind of, even though it's different, color, it's blue on green, it's not as effective. It's kind of what's happening here. It kind of makes it harder to read and it's not as clear. So like parts here will be blocked off, and that just is not a very good thing to do. Unlike what we have here, which every little image that sticks out in the foreground, it sticks out in a good way, in a way that creates this good contrast between them. And then the same thing with the black and white, right? Even though the color is gone, because of the way the outer, where it would be green, is a much lighter than the black and white here, or the black text, it helps you read this image so much clearer, and the text so much clearer compared to what we have here, where we have a darkened gray, where it would be dark green. Again, it totally makes it hard to read some of the stuff. And so it cuts out a lot of the text, and it's just a bad way of creating contrast. So this is one of the things to keep in mind. Repetition, the next part, the R and the crap. Basically, we're using the kind of similar design elements to create this interesting or appealing image for the reader. It might not necessarily be important to clarify or make your information clear. It's more like to make it consistent. So like, for instance, I've been using repetition so far in my PowerPoint here, right? Regardless of the images that or the text that you see, you have the same kind of design throughout. Of course, to be fair, this is a PowerPoint like template, so it's not like I made this, but this is an important thing to keep in mind. Even if it doesn't use the bottom or top, you'll notice that the top stays the same when I change slides, and sometimes it changes here. And so when I don't have the top part, I have the bottom part, but the color stays consistent, right? That's all what repetition is about, is making sure that that whatever colors or images you use, they're consistent and it doesn't break the flow unless you want it to, right? And here's just a basic example of repetition. Of course, you may want to sometimes, depending on what your purpose is you have like all these, for instance, say you had all these colored pencils here. Imagine you had like a regular number 2 pencil here, and maybe you would want that there because you'd want it to stand out because maybe you're focusing on a number 2 pencil. Maybe that's what you're trying to sell or whatever. So you can break the repetition on purpose if that's what you're trying to do, right? Alignment. Basically, having good alignment makes things easier and clearer to understand. If things are not aligned well, it seems random and chaotic, and it sticks out in the worst possible way. It's one of those, it's like the old saying, right? Where if you do something right, it's like nobody notices it at all. If you have good alignment, no one's going to notice it. But as soon as you have bad alignment, they will definitely see it. So here we have an example of what I think is a good alignment, right? Imagine this was a whole screen. It wouldn't be cut out here. But you can see, here they have this section here, which is right in the center. The 4 squares are exactly the same size, and they're the same space between them. Here, it works the same way. They have their big, like almost title, and then they have the text down here. And then up here, they have the same buttons. Over here, you can see it's aligned, the text here on the left. And then even though this is sticking out a little bit, it's completely different the way it's written compared to the buttons here, so it works. Imagine if this part right here was a little bit to the right or a little bit to the left. It wasn't quite centered. Or one of these images here was just a little bit higher than the one here. It would break that alignment. People would notice it and it becomes unprofessional and it just sticks out in such a negative way that because it's offensive to us, when things aren't aligned correctly. It's one of those things that you don't think about, but once you see it and starts to work on it on your own, it really you start to notice it. And this will make sense once you start to kind of put your images in together, especially if you do like a brochure or an infographic. And proximity, basically, if things are closer to one another, it creates this relationship to that information. So for instance, on our previous example here, oops, wrong way. We because this information is right under this image, we assume, even without reading it, that this has to do with this, and this has to do with this, and this has to do with this, and this has to do with this. And if it doesn't, that's a problem because it creates this confusion. I'm like, why do you have this image here when this has nothing to do with this image? That's what proximity is about. And so when images are closer to one another, they give the impression that they relate to one another. And if they're further apart, that means that they don't have anything to do with one another, right? So it's about grouping them, and of course, in a consistent and appealing way, all about appealing, right? So how you use proximity is going to matter. Sometimes you want to have a unity, an order, an equal idea to your proximity. Avoid having fragmentation, having chaos, having randomness, right? Making things unequal, unless again you want to do something like this because you want your repetition to break. Whatever the case is, proximity is going to matter when it comes to the information that you put together with one another. So here's some more examples of how you would use proximity and what works. So for instance, in this image on the left, it doesn't matter what it's about, but here on the left, you can kind of see maybe that this image is, there's rising action. So this first image is like on the lowest spectrum here, but then it starts to, there's more action or like something is happening to elevate it. So the image is higher, and then the highest image or the peak of what's happening is at the very far right. But maybe instead each of these images are equal to one another. They don't really have maybe it's just a consistent order from left to right. So there's no necessarily a rising action in this case. So they're kept exactly in the same proximity to each other. They're not one is not higher than the other. And that's a good way to show right off the bat without even knowing what the information is or what the story is or whatever this is that these images are all related. Maybe this is a consistent timeline, right? Or while this is like the same thing, like the same story, right? And something is happening to further the story. So, and it's getting more dramatic or something. So that way, the way this is put up is creating that image already in your head. But this one, not so much. Maybe it's like this happened first, and this happened, right? Over here on the right, we have a good example of proximity compared to a bad example. So this is the before, which is the bad example. Well, think of it this way because they try to create the text to wrap around the image. It's a fair like thinking of doing that, like, oh, well, maybe you'll create this cute little silhouette. But what ended up happening is that it kind of created this disorder here on the right if you notice. So this is centered. This is over the way to left. This one is curving toward, in the shape of the cat's face here. And this is, I don't know what's going on here, right? So this creates this weird like spacing over here, which is very unappealing. So even though it's a little bit more boring, it's better and more consistent if everything is centered. All the text is not centered, I'm sorry, not centered, but aligned, in proximate way so that everything fits in this invisible line here that you can see, even though there is no line, the way everything is aligned works really well. So, and then because we understand our work with proximity, we understand that this information is related to this here, and this is something different from this. It's actually, and as you can see, it's the address. So, because it's separated here between this thing here, it works out pretty well. The only thing I would say, I think, is to make this logo here and kind of use this negative space here and maybe just bring that over here and enlarge the logo a little bit like we have here to kind of fill up the space. But that's not necessarily needed. Having negative space isn't a bad thing. It might be something that you want, to create gaps here. Like for instance, there's this space here between the bold and middle line between this information. And that information is perfectly fine as a way to kind of, otherwise it'd be too cluttered if there was no space in there, right? But anyways, those are good examples of proximity. And here overall is just examples of using uh, the C.R.A.P design principles to show how they could all work together. So here we have contrast, right, between the colors that are used, especially the iPods that are sticking out with the black silhouette. And then there's repetition because they're all the same squares, right? And they're all dancing, even though they're doing different dances. We know that they're all related to this ad. Alignment, everything is aligned correctly. Imagine if this was sticking up a little higher, this one a little lower, it would kind of ruin it. And then proximity, right? They're all proximate to each other. And this is a little outdated. No one has iPads anymore, or iPods, not iPads, iPods, right? You just use your phone. But you could see them still using something similar to this to maybe promote an iPhone, the newest iPhone or whatever, right? And they're focusing on the music aspect of it. So instead of having a wire here, which was very prominent in the early aughts, they would have an iPhone they were holding, and then they would have their earbuds or some kind of wireless earphones, right? And that's what you would have highlighted. So you'd have this would still be white, this would still be white, but you wouldn't have this ugly cord anymore because we don't do that anymore. But anyways, that's a good example. Here's another example here of using contrast. This is a great example of contrast, right? And there's proximity as well. Although, notice how something is off here, right? Look how it's wider here, the space, compared to what we have here. And then here in the middle, which is even worse, there's less cut here, right? Why not cut this evenly so that it's always the same? They didn't choose to do that. Maybe that might bother some people, right? Because there's this big space here and it's not consistent with the rest. But still, you have this contrast with all the different colors, and then they do a good job with the contrast because even though this is green, it still sticks out from the green in the background here. And then there's repetition, of course, because it's this exact same image, but different colors for the image. And then we have here like a negative photo of this image, right? And then the proximity, like I said, is a little off. I mean, the bottom looks kind of similar, but like I said, the left. But either way, that's some example. This could be worked on a little bit, but it may be more an artistic choice, right, than actually an appealing choice, and that might be something to kind of keep in mind. So, some takeaways about craft design principles. Design does matter. I'm not asking you to be a digital designer here, but I am asking you to kind of think about how to be appealing with the way you're going to design your digital project, which again, I'll get into how you're going to do that in some examples. But keep the principles kind of in mind. Don't be very noisy. And by that, I mean, don't over design your document, right? So that it's too much or maybe like what you have here. Maybe this is too much. Maybe they have to kind of take it down. Also, another thing is don't be too flashy. So imagine if I had like some transitions with my um, so for instance, let's see with my PowerPoint here, we have like some transitions that nobody really uses. I don't know where they have this, but I guess, I don't know, maybe you'll find maybe let's do like curtains, right? So imagine I had this for like some kind of design for this in every single one. Like I put one there or something like this, and then I had wind or prestige, sure. So now when we go to our PowerPoint here, like that, like just get on with the slide. Can you imagine? Did I not put another one? Oh, wait, hold on. Or maybe I'm skipping it. Let's see. Okay, it's neat, but could you imagine every single slide like that? No, just get on with the slide, right? It's unnecessary. It just makes things like take too much time. Even if it doesn't seem like it's only like half a second, but it's just like I don't know. It doesn't really engage in the way you'd think it'd want to. It just creates this noise, is what I'm talking about. Same thing with like even a still image. Having too much clutter can do that noise, right? Remember that you have visuals that can be better than bullet points. Bullet points can work, but you don't want to have your whole document just be all bullet points. Use them very rhetorically when it really does matter, right? And then empty space isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like sometimes I have empty space here, but that I think is important because if I had too much, like I said, too much information, like imagine if I had this stuff all just look at how I cut it out, right? The way I put this information. I've been doing this throughout the whole quarter, and you'll notice in my PowerPoints, right? Where I have information that it's not just a whole big, huge paragraph taking up the whole, at least I tried, right, to take up the whole PowerPoint because it creates this ugly, boring looking document that you don't want to read, right? The whole point of cutting this up like this is that you would take these small snippets on your own. That's the idea. And so that's kind of what you want to do as well with your where you design. Contrast is also, of course, very important. Look at the way I contrast this information with the black background. Um, and if you have a light background, you're going to have a darker image, right? So that's the idea. And repetition, of course, is important. It's something that people don't notice along with alignment, but if you don't have good repetition, it makes things stick out in a bad way, right? So anyways, that's really what we're looking at. That's all what C.R.A.P is all about. about creating good contrast, good alignment, good repetition and proximity. If you keep these principles in mind, it'll help you a lot when it comes to creating your digital project. And maybe you're already digitally inclined, you already made a lot of stuff already. This will be not a big deal for you, this project for the final portfolio or this part of the final portfolio. Um, but the idea is here that I wanted to make something kind of fun because you're not gathering any new information. You're not going to go out and look for more sources or write anything else. You're going to bring what you already have from your research paper and bring it into this project. And I'll show you what that could look like. Um, so options to revise project two. Before that, though, there is an exercise before I get into your options that I want you to do to kind of work on looking at CRAP design principles. So let's go to our page here on Canvas, and let's go to this is, I think, the last discussion we will have for this class. And so this will be the last thing you do as a class. So it's going to be called Looking for Crap. Yeah, you can tell I can have fun always using an acronym. But here, basically, I want you to find a website that has what you would think good design or maybe bad design crap principles, right? For example, just find a good any website that you want to look at. It could be even Olympic College's website, for instance. Let's take a look at that. And then basically look for what has going on here. So let's say we were taking a look at Olympic College. Oop, not that. Oh, we're gonna go back right here. Yeah. And so just kind of answer these questions. How well does it use contrast? Is it effective or not? Is this an effective use of contrast here, right? How is there repetition? How so, right? I would say so with the red on white background, and the repetition would be this red color that Olympic College has. It's kind of its main color, right? And that's what you see throughout. And you only have to look at the main page of the website. Don't have to go and look throughout all the different links. Just what we have here is perfect, right? You don't have to look at every single aspect of the website. It's just a quick look on how a website uses design to with the CRAP principles in mind. And that's all you're really writing about. Does it use contrast? In what ways? Could it be done better? How well is alignment used, right? Give a specific example from your website. Is this a good use of alignment? How about the way it's this image? What about this image and this image here, right? Or how about these? These are really well aligned, huh? Um, and what about this website appeals to you or not, right? If you're looking at a bad example of a website, which you can still find bad examples, but if you have a good graphic designer, a good web designer, you should be able to all find good examples of a website. So that's really all you're doing. It's 500 words, but you're not responding to anybody else. You're just and I want this to be a discussion just to see what other people find. Make sure you link the website URL to your response. Just click on the link here, say it was Olympic College, click on the link, copy that and paste it over so people can take a look and I can take a look at what website you found. Make sure, of course, to draft this in a Google Doc and link that as well. And that's it. Just 500 words on tell me how well it's designed. Overall, is it appealing to you? Why or why not, right? And that's it. This is a quick exercise on looking for crap design principles. Okay, so anyways, that's the last discussion you'll have. As for options for looking at, I already have some open here. Options for, or some examples for options you may have for this digital project. I have actually right here some links. So here, if you click on this here, it's not gonna go here, but if you click on the link, it should go. Here's just some five different tools to help you build an infographic, which an infographic would look like this, right? So what it is, it's basically making one big, huge image. And then what you would do is bring in your information that you, again, already have. You're not finding new information. This is based off your research paper and then bring in the important points right here. So this is all about why donating blood is important, right? And notice what they did here, though. They included their sources here, which you would want to do as well. You may not have to cite every single source so you have 10 or 12, I forget, but maybe you only used five in your infographic. Fine, just cite the five that you use and cite like you would normally. So you should have citations here. Um, you may want to cite in Chicago, which would be better than citing in APA because, for instance, in Chicago, well, let me show you what Chicago would look like. Which, if you want to know how to cite in there, well, you have a handy dandy tools to do that, right? Remember, there's your book that has Chicago citations, and two, the Purdue OWL, which you should have been using throughout. But you can cite an APA if you want, because that's the way you've been doing it before. But Chicago is pretty simple. Let's want to show you a quick example of this. Chart tree. Check this out. All of these numbers here, that's Chicago. So what it does is it links, instead of having this big clutter, right, of having a big your citation in parenthetical, it's just a number, which is all down here, right? And this is where you find the source. So that's how you can do it for your um, sources down here. But anyways, this is an infographic, right? And so these tools are here to kind of help you make an infographic for free, right? Now, there's, of course, paid versions. I've used Canva before, not to be confused with Canvas, which is what we use, right? Canva, no S in the end, right? If you click on it here, it goes to Canva. It'll have you log in with your Google account. It'll ask you if you try Canva Pro for free. Don't just, I mean, unless you want to, whatever. And then you could just search for some templates to start with. So say for an infographic here, right? And then here we have some templates that it gives you to kind of use. If it has a little crown, you can't use it because it's a pro account, right? So you can just click on it here, say you wanted to use this. Oh wait, well, I guess not this one because this one's also a crown. Fine, we won't use it. This one, customize this template, right? So here's the template. It looks small, but actually it's a lot larger than it is. It's just zoomed out. So this is a big um, uh, infographic. And again, maybe you'd have your main title here, whatever it is, maybe like digital privacy, right? And then go on from there. And then maybe you have a graph from, and then again, always cite this information. And maybe the last part here will have things that you can cite from everything you cited in your actual uh, your infographic here. And there's a lot of stuff you can bring in. So like images, graphics, pictures. One thing that of note though, it's all drag and drop here. It's pretty easy to use, but you have to use the images that they provided, I think. And a lot of stuff is locked behind their premium, right? Pro, which I don't want you to buy, of course. Don't buy anything. But it is a good way to kind of start. And of course, if you just want to see a example, just Google infographic examples and you'll get a bunch, just go to images and just copy, what's out there, like the design of it itself and how they put information, right? So here's a good infographic of infographics. And for images, if you want to use AI art, by all means, I don't care. That's fine. Or just grab art or like images from Google, and just copy and paste it over. That's totally fine. The most important thing is to attribute your information. Now, if you use AI art, you don't really have to cite it. It's AI art, right? Of course, there's ethical concerns with that, but not when it comes to, for us, like I said, not really. I'm not too worried about AI art itself. I mean, especially for something like this, it's actually the kind of thing to use it for. You're not necessarily, selling this stuff or anything. It's for an assignment, but um, you can just do images off Google as well, right? Whatever's easiest. And again, this Canva is great because it's just super easy to use. It's drag and drop. One thing is you won't be able to actually download this image. You'll only be able to share this as a link to me. So you just copy your link whenever you save it. It'll give you like a hyperlink. It might just be this hyperlink, and just copy and paste it over to that section of your final portfolio, which I'll go over in specifically my final portfolio video when you get to that. But this is an option. Like I said, there's other templates to use, Resume, PicoChart. And this is kind of an outdated list. It's from 2019. There might be others, but these are good ones to start. But that's just an infographic. They're great in case it's basically, imagine you had to make a poster of your research paper, right? So what is exactly that you're going to bring or show visually to make the argument? Instead of being a paper, it's not going to be an image. How can you bring that all that information, and what's the most important thing to bring in? So that's what I mean. If you only use half your sources because some of the sources that you weren't able to bring everything in, that's fine. Just cite what you do bring in. Maybe in the corner here, this last part is all your references, and then the rest is here is just an image. And there's so many examples of infographics. Here's another one here. Here's one here. You may even want to like have an infographic of what you are doing. So maybe someone is doing uh Facebook privacy. I don't know. Maybe they have something like that. Oops. Ooh, this one's that one's not enough. Let's see. That one looks kind of cool. Let's see what we got here. Oh, no, it's like a timeline one, I guess. Ooh, a long one. This is long. A lot of information. But look at what they did here. Okay. Well, anyways, that's one option. Is an infographic. I have one here to just kind of show you if you want to click on it. There's, like I said, examples here. Now, what about a brochure, right? So if we click on this one here, let's close this stuff. It gets too cluttered. So here's a brochure that was made in Word, and I'll show you how to do that here real quick. So here's from one of my previous students that well, was it? Or was it just an example? I don't think it was a previous, it was just an example. Either way, what's nice about this is that imagine you were going to hand out this brochure to somebody. So this on the far right here is actually the first image you'll see. This is the last image because this is a perfect place to put all your references. And this is once you open this lid, this is what you would see. And then this would be the inside of it, right? Because this is a brochure, right? So you would actually be folding this. Here's the line, you'd be folding this, right? So this is the inside, and this is where the majority of your information would be. What images can you put on with the information, right? So maybe something that they kind of could have focused on a little bit more is their alignment, because look at how all the squares are different shapes, right? The images, maybe they should have kept that the same, but the information is pretty clear and it's pretty consistent throughout, so that's good. And the color use is pretty consistent. And so a brochure might be a good way to go. And you are able to use this, and I'll show you how to put this into your funnel portfolio when I go into that video specifically. But to do a brochure, you want to use Word. It'll probably be, I mean, you could do it in Canva as well, but with Word, it's a lot more free because you can put whatever image you want, right? You can put whatever information, and they do have good templates. Let me stop sharing my screen here. And let's share my screen for my Word file. Okay, here. Perfect. So here we already have a template that I put out or that I gathered. Let's say to do this, to find this template, let's go to home. Oh no, right, this home here. And then, oops, stop sharing this image here. Hopefully I can share this. I was having trouble before. Yeah, it doesn't, for some reason, it won't let me share the screen for gathering templates. But basically what you do is when you start a new project with Word, and I don't know why it won't allow me. I'm sorry. It just will not allow me to share this the Word file or the program wants looking for templates. But basically when you'll have the home button on the left, right? And you'll have blank document, welcome to Word. If you go to the search option on the far right, don't open a blank document. Type in brochure. Oh, I'm sorry, not quite yet. You have to go to a to more templates. There we go. Now do brochure. And you should find a ton of them because I'm searching in templates. So if you click on home, it'll show you some templates for like writing stuff, but you want to click on it's on the top right. It'll say more templates. And then just type in brochure. And again, I'm sorry, I don't know why Zoom isn't allowing me to uh show you this. It won't unless I click on the template itself, it won't um actually show this part of it. But if you can get to here, let me just pick a random template here that looks okay. How about that one? Sure. Open it, please. Okay. So now, for some reason, let's see. Let's share. Okay. No, stop sharing, please. Let's try that again. I have a new template here. Let me share that I just opened up. Yeah, so for some reason, whatever the case is, it's not going to let me show you how to, it just won't, it's not an option to share. But basically, I clicked on this. As soon as I click on that, it stops sharing. Yeah, it sucks, but it's what it is with what you got. But basically, you start from there. Um, Let me close that template thing out. Otherwise, it won't let me share that screen. Such a pain. But basically, yeah, once you click on this icon, here's how you start. It'll have a bunch of options here on the top. The first one's a blank document. On the corner, you'll see more templates. Click on that and then search brochure. That's it. And then you'll have a bunch of templates that start with brochures. And so here you have a template here, and then you just fill out your information. Totally fine. And you'll have to like bring in your own images and stuff. So the stuff here isn't going to work. And then you might want to start with an even, because some of the images, the way it's cut here is going to kind of mess you up a little bit. And it might be more work to try to get rid of this image than to not. So you may want to start with a completely blank one, but it just has it cut up for you here. Because basically this is just a text box, right? That it's only about this large. So that way it doesn't cut into here. And this same thing here. And then here it's fine, but then you have this image here, which I'm not sure how to cut this one out. Sometimes some are easier to mess around with others. I don't know why this one is, I don't know how to click on this images, but that's an option. People have done this before. A simpler template to use might be better for you than what you have here, but it's up to you. Word is a great place to use to do a brochure like this. Remember that this is the first page that you see, this is the end, and this is the flap that you would see after you open this flap, and then this is all what's inside from left to right, right? So you will probably have to, you won't be able to, if you do a brochure in this format, one thing to note is that when you save it as you will normally, but then you probably want to save each part into an image because you're going to have to actually insert your brochure into an image into the final portfolio as because of the way it's organized. You notice the layout of the paper. It's not normal. It's horizontal instead of being vertical. So the rest of your paper is going to be vertical, right? Because it's all going to be text, except for this section. And it's not going to work. You can't make the whole, just that one part of the portfolio horizontal. Trust me and try it. So what you can do, though, is save this as an image and then upload the brochure as an image to one page and then the next page. It doesn't quite cover the whole page, but that's fine. You look at what you got. I'm not worried about that. Um, but we'll talk more about that in the final portfolio itself. Either way, this is another option. It's a great option to use. You have Word for free, remember. If you forgot, let me share. Let's go back to Firefox, please. Let's go to back to our modules. Remember that over here on the left, let's go to student view so we show, you can see exactly what you see. Okay, so you have the options right here on the left, right? So we're in modules as always, but over here is Office 365. Click on that. It'll take you to this link here, which you open in a new tab. It'll have you log in. Note, please, if you have your own Microsoft Office, make sure to log out of that because you need to log in with your Olympic College credentials, not your own personal. So make sure that you're logged out of that because it'll take you because Office is used for a bunch of things, right? You might already have a Microsoft account from something else. Log out of that. You got to log in with the same credentials as you would with Olympic College, right? So it's well, however you log in with Canvas, your username and password is the exact same. Log in with that, and then you'll have this here, which you can use Word here, but what you really want to do is install it, right? So just install Microsoft Office, which comes with Word, Excel, PowerPoint, whatever. And you can use PowerPoint as well, actually. That works for making a brochure or even what do you call it, an infographic, but it's not as it's limited, right? Because it's really more for slides, but it's up to you. Um, so yeah, going over to the other examples we have here. Oh, let me close this out. Let me stop student view. Leave student view. Let's go back to modules. Like I said, these are just examples that I've given you. Um, by all means, you can Google a ton more examples. There's the brochure here. I think I already opened that one, but whatever. There's one here. There's one. This is just some I just grabbed that I've had before. Um, oh, here's one I think I did a long time ago. Like when I was in college as an undergrad, just a very basic one. This one's pretty ugly, honestly. But it works. I mean, you get it. I mean, look at the terrible contrast with the text here. That's a bad color choice. And this image is too big. Ah, whatever. But and I probably what I did also is didn't what you want to avoid is I should have had my citations here as to where I got this all information. I probably what I did is included an additional page with citations separately. But if possible, you want to be able to include the citations to the image itself. Either way, I just want to give you some examples. It's up to you how you want to do the digital project. It's really open. Like I said, I'm not asking you to really work long hours on this. This should be fun. This should be something a different way of thinking rhetorically on how to present the information that you've already gathered and, give it to someone as if you were going to give it to as an image. So, for instance, this was a research paper and you have to pick the right information. So here's it's bolded the main points are put in bullet points, and then here the information starts to go through and they give images, and then the we assume the text, right, is related to the image on top of it, and it continues on throughout the whole brochure. And then here's some examples. Only thing is this missing is just citations throughout. Like I said, Chicago might work. If you don't want to do that, use your APA as always. And then the last part here, perfect for using your citations for bringing them in. And then over here, we have a great uh, image of a blood bag because it's about donating blood, and then why it's important, each of the points throughout, right? And as you notice in this case, not a lot of text, right? It's more image based, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine. We're not here to have people read a book. We're here to engage them with the information that we've gathered. And then here's their sources over here, right? And this is a good example. But anyways, that's basically what I'm asking you to do for this project. Um, Keep the crap design images, I'm sorry, crap design principles in mind as you're doing it, and you should be good to go. Ask me for any questions, for any help on this. There are several different things to use that I've provided for you guys. Please use them as you see fit, and however you want to do your digital project for your final portfolio, it's up to you. Have fun with it, honestly. It's very open. That's the whole idea for this. But anyways, that's it for this video. It's getting way too long, so we'll cut it there. Thank you so much for joining me on this one, and I think this is it. So I will not catch you in the next video. Bye for now.